You don't see betrayal coming not from the woman who holds your secrets. Not from the man who swore he'd never lie. I thought I knew the shape of my own life. Family dinners, best friend on my couch, daughter's laughter, echoing down the hall. But it only takes one Friday night for everything safe to feel suddenly staged. You ever looked across the dinner table and realized the people smiling back are the ones digging your grave? I didn't just lose my husband. I lost my best friend and the version of myself who believed love was enough. Tell me, if you uncovered the ugliest truth, would you keep the peace or set the whole house on fire? Comment below. I want to know what you'd do. Friday nights always smelled like rosemary and bread. I stood at the stove, apron dusted in flour, listening to the sound of Paige's laughter spilling from the living room, the kind of laughter that makes you believe you're safe. Rowan's voice carried in from the hall, teasing and bright. Need help, chef? Like we were still teenagers, no secrets, no cracks. I smiled, but the air in my chest was tight. No, I've got it, just don't let Paige eat all the carrots. The scent of melted butter, sharp and sweet, filled the kitchen. Adam was late. Again. He texted, running behind big client. A story I'd heard a dozen times this year. I set 4 places, napkins folded edge to edge, silverware lined up just so. Cedar Falls twilight pressed cold fingers to the window glass. Rowan swept in citrus and cedar, trailing behind her, lifting the mood like she always did. She snatched a carrot from the bowl, grinned at me as if nothing in the world could ever go wrong. We sat down together when Adam finally arrived, hair damp from the rain, smile a shade too bright. He kissed my cheek, quick, cool, more routine than affection. Paige was already snapping photos, catching Rowan mid-laugh. Adam mid-smirk, me in the background blurred. Dinner was a carousel, stories about school, work, weather, always the weather. Rowan made Paige cackle. Adam laughed, glancing at Rowan, their eyes locking for just a beat too long. I noticed. So did Paige. But I blinked, shook it off. Hazel, you always overthink. After dessert, Rowan offered to clean up, Adam trailing after her to the kitchen. From the hallway, I watched her, flicking water at him, his grin familiar, almost tender. A little too easy. I forced a laugh, looked down at Paige's photos, Adam and Rowan shoulder to shoulder, eyes bright, my reflection ghostly behind. I tried to join in. Next time, I want to be in the picture. It came out thinner than I meant. When I cleared the plates, I noticed a lipstick stain on Adam's water glass. Not my color. A coral I never wore. I scrubbed it away. Maybe Rowan's, maybe nothing. Adam's phone buzzed. Just a second. He caught it fast, screen turned down. Rowan yawned, said she'd crash on the couch like always. I laid a blanket over her, tucked her in. She looked peaceful, hair fanned out like a crown. I locked up. Adam was already upstairs, his side of the bed cold when I slipped in. Rain hit the windows. I counted breaths, listened to Adam breathing, the steady, even sound of someone with nothing to hide. Or so I thought. Downstairs, Rowan murmured in her sleep. I told myself it was just another Friday. That I was safe. That the people in my house were really mine. But as I closed my eyes, a thought crept in. When did my home stop feeling like mine alone? And when did I become the only one who didn't know what was happening right under my roof? Sometimes the real story starts the moment you realize you're just a guest at your own dinner table. I woke early, gray light leaking through the blinds, the hush of Cedar Falls pressing close. Adam was already gone. His side of the bed cold, untouched. I pressed my hand to the pillow, tracing the faintest scent of his cologne, something sharp, something unfamiliar. Downstairs, the house was too quiet. Only the low hum of the fridge and Rowan's soft breathing from the couch. For a moment, I watched her sleep, her face, soft lips, parted hair tangled on the pillow I fluffed for her. How many nights had she stayed here? How many times had I called her sister? I remembered sleepovers as girls braiding each other's hair, vowing we'd always tell the truth. Coffee brewed bitter and dark. Rowan woke with a groan, stretched like a cat in morning sun. Smells good, she said, patting over in Adam's old sweatshirt, one I hadn't seen in months. I poured her a mug, pretended not to notice. She sipped, smiled, asked about my weekend plans. I wanted to ask, When did my life become something I had to tiptoe around? But I said nothing. Just smiled and changed the subject like women do, when they're afraid of the answer. By noon the house was empty again. Paige gone with friends, Rowan off to a yoga class, Adam at work, a meeting that would run late. I drove into town for groceries. Cedar Falls Main Street looked the same as ever, flags in every window, old men sipping coffee outside the bakery. But when I walked into the market, I felt it, the sideways glances, the little silence that falls when you enter a room. Two women near the produce aisle lowered their voices, eyes flicking my way. I wanted to believe I was imagining it, but the prickle at the back of my neck said otherwise. Miriam, my college friend, called as I waited at the checkout. We hadn't spoken in months. She skipped the small talk. Hazel, how's Rowan? I saw her and Adam at Grady's Grill last week. Looked like fun. Her voice was just a bit too light. I fumbled for a response. They must have run into each other. Adam eats there a lot for work, but my words sounded thin even to me. Miriam changed the subject. But the taste in my mouth was sour. That evening Adam brought home flowers. Sunflowers, bright, gaudy, not my favorite. No anniversary, no birthday, just a card that read, "You deserve all the sunshine in the world." He held them out, smiling too wide. I took them, heart-thudding. Adam never bought flowers unless he was sorry for something. I searched his face for a sign, guilt, relief, anything. All I saw was tiredness and a shadow behind his eyes. After dinner, Paige showed me photos from her afternoon out. Her friends had been playing by the lake. In the background of one shot, I saw two figures walking together along the trail, a tall man in a navy jacket, a woman with Rowan's copper hair, her hand resting on his arm. I zoomed in. The image pixelated, but the feeling was crystal clear. That night, I found an old receipt tucked into Adam's jacket pocket. A fancy restaurant, 2 dinners, wine, dessert. I checked the date. Last Thursday. The night he told me he was working late at the bank. My hands shook. I opened my phone, scrolled through photos from that night, searching for a memory to hold the truth together. All I found was a text from Rowan: "Sorry, can't make it for your birthday dinner." Rain check. But I remembered hearing her laughter in Adam's office when I called to ask about a grocery list. She'd said she was home watching television. Paige burst into the room, waving her phone. "Mom, why do Dad and Aunt Rowan have so many texts about the river trail? They never invite us." I swallowed hard. "They probably just like to walk and talk, honey." But Paige's eyes narrowed, her mouth set in a thin line. She was old enough to sense the lies. I went to the laundry room, started a load just to have an excuse to be alone. I leaned against the cool metal of the washer, breathing slow, shallow breaths. My phone vibrated, a message from Rowan. "Thinking of you. Let's do brunch Sunday. Just us girls." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over reply. How do you answer when you're not sure who your real friends are anymore? Late that night, I lay awake listening to Adam snore softly beside me. My mind ran loops over flowers, receipts, hidden photos, and the lipstick stain that wasn't mine. I closed my eyes, willed myself to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. Only the sound of my own doubts pacing the dark and a question I couldn't silence. When did I become a stranger in my own story? Some secrets hide in the spaces between laughter and silence. But in a small town, nothing stays buried forever. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Monday morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my coffee, watching the cream swirl but never blend. Rain pattered against the window, a slow, steady reminder that some things just don't wash away. Adam had already left for work. Paige was quiet, scrolling on her phone, not meeting my eyes. The air felt heavy, like we were all holding our breath. Rowan sent a cheery good morning text. "Hope you slept, Hazel. Let's get brunch soon. XO." I didn't answer. I watched the 3 dots blink then vanish. Mid-morning, I called my mom. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Is it crazy to think Adam and Rowan?" My words trailed off even for her. Mom sighed, soft and dismissive. "Hazel, you work too hard. Adam loves you. Rowan's like a sister." Don't let your imagination run wild. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. The ache in my chest grew sharper. I folded laundry, letting the rhythm of socks and shirts calm my hands. At the bottom of the basket, I found Adam's running shirt, perfume on the collar, floral and expensive. Not my scent. That evening, Adam was distant, glued to his laptop. He barely looked up when I set dinner down. Paige barely ate. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced a smile, cleared the dishes, kept moving. That's what women do, we keep moving. Later, I tried to talk to Rowan. I called, hoping to hear her voice crack, to hear a hint of guilt. She answered, light and bright as always. What's up, Hazel? I swallowed, tried to sound casual. You and Adam seem close lately. Everything okay? She laughed, loud and natural. Oh, Hazel, you're my best friend. Adam's just easy to talk to. Don't be silly. I wanted to believe her. I didn't. That night, Paige came into my room, eyes red-rimmed. Mom, is something wrong with Dad? I pulled her close, stroking her hair. We're just having a hard week. Grown-up stuff. Go to sleep, sweetheart. But sleep didn't come for either of us. The next morning, a message popped up on Adam's iPad. He'd left it charging in the kitchen. I hesitated, then opened it. The password: Rowan's birthday. My heart stuttered. The screen lit up with a flood of messages. Adam and Rowan jokes, emojis, late-night check-ins. A photo of the lake, a blurry selfie. Messages about missing you, can't wait for Friday. My hands shook. I took screenshots, forwarding them to my own email, fingers moving before my mind could catch up. The rest of the day blurred. At work, I made mistakes. At home, I burnt dinner. Everything felt tilted, like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. I checked the calendar. Rowan had borrowed my car last week to run errands. Gas receipt in the glove box, charged in the next town over. Same day, Adam was stuck late at work. The coincidences were stacking up, making it harder and harder to breathe. Before bed, I found a friendship journal Rowan had gifted me months ago, still on my bedside table. I opened the cover, smudged lipstick on the edge, the same coral shade I'd scrubbed from Adam's glass. For a moment, I couldn't move. Everything inside me went cold. I heard Adam's voice from the hallway, joking with Paige, easy as ever. My phone vibrated. Rowan again. Night, Hazel. Sweet dreams. XO. My dreams that night were sharp and restless, snatches of laughter that twisted the faces of the two people I trusted most, always just out of reach. When I woke, the only thing I knew for sure was that I couldn't ignore the unraveling anymore. Some threads, once pulled, never stop coming apart, and I was just getting started. I lost count of the lies. Wednesday morning, I found Adam pacing the kitchen, phone pressed tight to his ear. His voice was low, almost a whisper. When he noticed me, he jumped, quickly ending the call. Bank stuff, he said too fast. Just work drama. I tried to smile. You seem stressed lately. He shrugged, eyes darting away. It's nothing. Don't worry so much, Hazel. But that day, the house felt smaller, walls pressing in, rooms too quiet. Even Paige kept her distance, locked away in her bedroom, headphones on, drowning us out. I wanted to talk to Rowan, to ask her straight out, but every time I picked up the phone, I froze. What if I was wrong? What if I lost her too? That evening, I waited until Adam was in the shower. I scrolled through his call log, Rowan. Some calls just minutes apart. My stomach twisted. When I confronted him, Adam's face went cold. You're being paranoid, he snapped. Why are you checking up on me? Since when did you become so suspicious? He shook his head, disgusted. Hazel, I can't live like this. You're making things up. The shame stung. Was I really losing my mind? I turned to Rowan, desperate for reassurance. She answered on the second ring, cheerful as ever. Hey girl, everything okay? I heard myself stammer. Do you think I'm imagining things? She gave a sad sigh. Hazel, you're under so much stress. I'd never hurt you, you know that. Maybe you need to talk to someone. Don't let your thoughts get away from you. I hung up more confused and alone than before. The next days blurred. Friends stopped calling. Miriam left a vague voicemail. "Take care of yourself, Hazel. People are talking." At the grocery store, familiar faces turned away. Mom called, her voice tight. "Don't let your marriage fall apart over rumors. Hold on to your family, Hazel." At home, even Paige seemed distant, her trust in me slipping. I spent hours online reading stories from women who'd been betrayed. Each one sounded just like me, doubting a lone gaslit until they couldn't trust their own memories. One night after Adam had gone to bed, I found an email half-printed on the home office printer. My name in the subject line. The message was short, raw: "I'll tell Hazel after the holidays. Don't worry, I promise." It was from Adam. Addressed to Rowan. My hands shook so badly I had to sit down. The floor felt unsteady. All this time they'd told me I was crazy. All this time they'd been plotting behind my back. I looked at myself in the mirror, tired eyes, hollow cheeks, lips pressed tight. Was this what being crazy looked like, or was I finally seeing things for what they were? I crawled into bed beside Adam, facing the wall, his breathing steady behind me. I thought about every word he'd said, every smile Rowan had given me, every time someone told me to calm down. For the first time, I stopped doubting myself. Sometimes the only way to keep your sanity is to trust your own pain. And in the dark, I promised myself this ends soon. There comes a point when you're too tired to be afraid. I woke before sunrise, heart pounding, resolve hardening. I was done begging for honesty from liars. This time I needed proof. All morning I played the part: Hazel, the patient wife, Hazel, the steady mom. I packed Paige's lunch, nodded as Adam mumbled goodbye, watched Rowan's name flash on my phone, and let it go to voicemail. Then I started my own investigation. First, the receipts. I spread them across the kitchen table: dinners for 2 hotel charges, gas stations in towns. Adam never mentioned visiting. Dates that matched Rowan's errands and Adam's late nights. My hands moved faster, the paper cutting my skin. Next, the photos. I scrolled Paige's camera roll, looking for patterns: Adam's jacket in the background, Rowan's hand on his arm, both of them cropped out of group shots, but always together. It wasn't enough. I needed someone outside my head to see it too. I called a private investigator, a local discreet, recommended by a friend who'd survived her own divorce. My voice was barely above a whisper. "I need you to watch my husband. And my best friend." She didn't sound surprised. "You're not the first." The week crawled by. Adam left early, came home late, smelling like hotel soap and someone else's perfume. Rowan's text turned apologetic: "Can't make lunch, so swamped, miss you." At night I'd hear Adam tapping out messages in the dark, his screen turned from me. I kept notes. Every odd detail, every overlap. I started a folder on my laptop labeled "For the Truth." If this all blew up, at least I'd know I wasn't crazy. Paige grew quieter. She watched me with guarded eyes, asking fewer questions, keeping her headphones on at dinner. Midweek, the investigator called back. Her voice was steady, careful. "I have what you need. Photos. Your husband and Rowan together at Lakeview Park, same picnic table every Thursday. Arms around each other. Sometimes more than that." I thanked her, throat burning, and paid without asking for more. That night, I printed the photos, slid them into an envelope, hid it in the bottom drawer of my nightstand. I sat there for a long time, staring at the yellow kitchen walls I'd painted with Rowan years ago. I'd trusted those hands with my house, my child, my heart. Later I found a bracelet, Rowan's signature beaded style, stuffed between the seats in Adam's car. It felt like a punch. Paige found me crying in the laundry room. She wrapped her arms around me, silent. I wanted to protect her, to keep the ugliness away. But even at 16, she could sense the world shifting. That night, I wrote myself a letter: Hazel, when you doubt yourself again, remember what you've seen. You are not losing your mind. You are losing people who never deserved your trust. The ache dulled, replaced by something sharper, clearer. Anger. Once you start searching for the truth, you can never go back to before, and I was done being afraid of what I'd find next. I didn't sleep for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Adam's face blurred behind a screen of half-truths, Rowan's laughter echoing down hallways that used to be safe. I lived in my own house like a stranger moving through rooms with the lights off, too tired to care who noticed. I spent a whole Sunday sorting evidence. Photos, receipts, texts, a hand-drawn map from the private investigator marking every place they'd met. My hands were numb, my eyes dry. By noon, I'd run out of surfaces. I laid it all out on the living room rug, proof that love, once it goes bad, spreads everywhere. There were emails. Adam, I promise, just a little longer. She'll understand someday. I want you. Asterisk. Rowan. It hurts lying to Hazel. She's always been there for me. But I can't give you up. Asterisk. There was a voice memo from Adam to Rowan hidden in his phone's recordings. We need to stop being so careful. I want a real life with you. Asterisk. There was the perfume on Adam's shirts, the lipstick on the mug, the bracelet in his car. All the little things I'd dismissed, now damning. But the worst was the way their stories fit together perfectly. Every time Rowan canceled on me, Adam worked late. Every lie was a thread woven into the tapestry of my life. I made copies of everything. Printed, labeled, stacked. I put them in a manila envelope and wrote on the front, "The truth." I sat at the kitchen table for hours, the envelope in front of me, hands pressed flat on the cool surface. I tried to remember what it felt like to trust someone. By evening, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I called Adam, my voice steady. "Can you come home early? We need to talk." He hesitated. "Busy at work. What's wrong?" "Please. Just come home." When I hung up, my hands shook, but my heart felt strangely calm. I put the envelope on his pillow. I texted Rowan too. "We need to talk. Come by tonight." Asterisk. Adam arrived first. He walked in with a takeout bag, face tight with annoyance. "Hazel, what is this? Is Paige okay?" I nodded. "Sit down." He set the food on the counter, glancing around for Paige. "She's at Miriam's. I sent her for a sleepover." His shoulders sagged like he already knew. "Hazel, what's going on?" I slid the envelope across the table. He stared at it, didn't touch it. I waited. "Open it." He shook his head, jaw clenched. "I don't know what you think you have." "Open it, Adam." His hand hovered over the envelope, then pulled back. I grabbed it, ripped it open, spread the photos and emails across the table. For a moment, there was only the tick of the clock, the hum of the fridge. He looked at everything in silence, eyes moving fast, scanning, calculating. "You went through my stuff." His voice was hard, cold. I didn't flinch. "Yes, I did." He stared at the proof, his lies laid bare. He didn't deny, didn't apologize. Instead, he looked at me with something almost like pity. "Hazel, you always needed everything to be perfect." I tried. I really did. I stared back, my hands folded, voice low. "You broke us. Not me." He stood up, shoulders squared, eyes empty. "I'll stay at a hotel tonight, give you space." "That's not what you're doing. You're going to her." He didn't answer. Just grabbed his keys, left the envelope and the mess behind. I stood in the quiet, listening to the engine start, the door slam. Minutes later, Rowan knocked. She came in, face red from crying, hair pulled back, hands shaking. "Hazel, please let me explain." "Don't." My voice was steady, but my body shook. She tried to reach for me. I pulled away. "How long, Rowan?" She crumpled onto the couch. "Months. I didn't mean for this to happen. You were my family." I laughed. It was a sharp, broken sound. "My family, that's what you call this?" She sobbed, the sound raw, desperate. I messed up. I'm so sorry. I couldn't look at her, couldn't touch her. I thought of every secret I'd ever told her, every night we'd shared dreams, plans, tears. Now it was all poison. You need to go. She begged, words tripping over each other, apologies and excuses tumbling out. But I just shook my head. Rowan left her steps heavy on the porch. The door clicked shut. I sat alone, the envelope still open, truth scattered everywhere. It's strange how fast a life can fall apart. I spent that night awake, sitting at the kitchen table as dawn crept through the blinds. No tears. Only exhaustion, a hollow ache settling in my bones. Paige came home the next morning, her eyes wary, her voice small. Where's Dad? He's staying somewhere else for a while. She nodded, sat beside me silent. I put my arm around her, resting my cheek on her hair. There were calls from Adam, voicemails I didn't answer. A long trembling email from Rowan full of if only and I wish and please forgive me. None of it made sense anymore. Days blurred. I did laundry, cooked meals, went to work. I barely slept. In the quiet, I heard the echo of old laughter, the memory of what was taunting me. Then one night, unable to sleep, I opened the folder again. At the very bottom was a voice memo I hadn't noticed before. Adam's voice, low and sure, whispering to Rowan. Once Hazel's out, we can finally do what we want. She'll be fine. She always lands on her feet. Asterisk. A plan to build a new life built from the ruins of mine. The final piece slid into place. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a quiet conspiracy, months in the making. And I realized I wasn't broken, I was angry. There's a line between being a victim and being done. And that night I finally stepped over it. I woke up with a new kind of energy. It wasn't hope. It wasn't even pain. It was resolve, cold, sharp, cutting through the fog that had weighed me down for months. I'd spent weeks letting their lies eat at me, letting myself shrink. But now, with the truth in my hands and nothing left to lose, I felt lighter. Almost dangerous. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the manila envelope, the truth scrawled across the front. The photos, the emails, the receipts, and that last cruel voice memo. I played it again, Adam's words slicing through the silence. Once Hazel's out, we can finally do what we want. She'll be fine. She always lands on her feet. Asterisk. My hands shook, but my heart was steady. That morning I called my parents. Mom, Dad, are you still hosting your anniversary party this weekend? Of course, honey. Everyone's coming. Are you all right? I'll be there. Paige and I will both come. There's something I need to say. I hung up before they could ask more. Next I called Miriam, my oldest friend. I told her everything, no secrets, no edits. She listened, then said, only I'll stand with you. Whatever you need. The party would be big. All of Cedar Falls would be there, my family, Adam's parents, our neighbors, Paige's friends, even the teachers from school. The thought of airing my pain in front of them should have terrified me. But I felt nothing. Nothing except the certainty that I would not stay silent. That afternoon, I spent hours putting together a slideshow, no dramatic music, no embellishment, just facts. The photos of Adam and Rowan together, arm in arm. The emails projected in stark black and white. The voice memo, just one short audio clip. I practiced my speech out loud in the living room over and over until my voice stopped trembling. It wasn't a speech about revenge, it was about truth. About no longer letting shame belong to me. Paige came home from a friend's house, saw me sorting through photos. She sat down quietly, her eyes full of questions. I told her the truth as simply as I could. She was quiet a long time, then wrapped her arms around me. I'm with you, Mom. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the plan running through my mind. The fear came sharp and old and familiar, but I let it pass through me. Tomorrow I would stand in front of everyone I loved, and I would not hide. Sometimes the only way to heal is to burn down the lies, and I was ready to light the match. The day of the party, Cedar Falls, felt impossibly small. I dressed in the pale blue dress Rowan once said made me look like spring. The irony was sharp, almost funny. Paige wore black, her silent protest. We drove to my parents' house, both of us quiet, windows down, letting cold air clear our heads. The front yard overflowed with cars. Laughter spilled from the porch. String lights twinkled above the garden. Children chased each other in the dusk, and everywhere familiar faces. Neighbors, cousins, Adam's family, teachers, even the pastor. Inside, my mother fussed over the cake, my father poured drinks, music hummed low. Adam was already there. He stood near the piano talking to his mother, face smooth, voice easy, like nothing had changed. Rowan hadn't arrived yet. I greeted people, accepted hugs and cheek kisses, smiled when expected, but I felt like a cardboard cutout, present but not real. Miriam squeezed my hand as I passed. "You're not alone," she whispered. The courage in her eyes steadied me. After dinner, as everyone gathered in the living room for speeches, my father tapped a spoon on his glass. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate 40 years with us," he said. People cheered, raised glasses. He smiled, eyes crinkling with pride. "And now Hazel has a few words." Hazel. For a moment, the room was pure noise, voices clinking, the shuffle of chairs. I stepped up, heart hammering. Paige moved to stand by my side. I looked out at the crowd, my mother's hopeful face, Adam's carefully blank expression, Adam's parents' expectant eyes. Behind them, Rowan slipped in quietly, still catching her breath, hair windblown. She smiled at me, wide, bright, as if nothing was wrong. I took a deep breath. My voice was clear. "I want to talk about family, about trust." The room stilled, something in my tone maybe, or the way Paige gripped my hand. In Cedar Falls, we pride ourselves on community, on telling the truth even when it hurts. I clicked the remote in my hand. The screen lit up behind me. Photo after photo, Adam and Rowan together, smiles, intimate arms linked in ways that could not be explained away. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone gasped. I saw my mother's face go pale. I read the first email aloud, Adam's words to Rowan, plain and damning. No one interrupted. Then I played the voice memo. Adam's voice, calm and certain. "Once Hazel's out, we can finally do what we want. She'll be fine. She always lands on her feet." Asterisk. There was a sharp intake of breath, Rowan's. She pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes huge, frozen. Adam stared at me, white as the cake's frosting. Silence hung thick and endless. I met Rowan's eyes. She tried to step forward, but her knees buckled. Adam reached for her. I flinched at the sight. Paige's hand squeezed mine harder. I could feel the room turning, shock, anger, confusion, pain. My voice was the only steady thing left. Secrets don't stay buried, not in this town, not in this family. I let the words hang. No one spoke. Sometimes justice is just the truth spoken out loud, and sometimes the loudest silence is the one that finally sets you free. For a long moment, no one moved. Adam's mother was the first to react. She stood, her hand trembling, face flooded with disbelief. Rowan crumpled into a chair, silent sobs, shaking her shoulders, mascara bleeding into her palms. People whispered, shifting uncomfortably, the air thick with shock and judgment. My father broke the silence. He stepped toward me, wrapped me in his arms. His hug was warm, solid, unconditional. "I'm proud of you, Hazel," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I heard someone, maybe my aunt, mutter, "I always wondered about those two." Neighbors turned to each other, voices low, already piecing together timelines, making sense of their own observations. Adam tried to speak. He stepped toward me, hands raised, as if that could erase everything. "Hazel, can we?" I shook my head. Paige stepped in front of me, her voice clear and fierce. "No, Dad. You don't get to fix this now." Rowan tried to reach for my hand, tears streaming. I'm sorry, Hazel. I never meant for this. I looked at her, Adam, at all the people who had watched us live out the lie. I felt a rush of relief. No more pretending, no more secrets. I turned to the crowd, voice steady. I won't answer questions tonight. There's nothing left to say. My mother cried quietly in the corner. Friends and relatives gathered around her. The music had stopped, the party had fractured. But I felt strangely free, like I could finally breathe after months underwater. Miriam found me, pulling me into a fierce hug. You did what none of us would have dared. Neighbors left in awkward silence, some with quick hugs, some with only a look of pity or respect. Adam's parents left without a word. Rowan slipped out the back, shoulders shaking, alone. As the house emptied, my father walked Paige and me to the car. He pressed the keys into my palm. Go home, Hazel, rest. We'll be here if you need us. Paige and I drove home in the dark, windows open, letting the night air wash away the last fragments of shame. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt the ache of betrayal, but also the first stirrings of peace. I had chosen truth, messy, public, and painful. But finally the weight wasn't mine to carry anymore. Sometimes healing begins with a reckoning. And sometimes burning down the lies is the only way to clear enough ground to start again. The morning after, the world was impossibly quiet. Sunlight spilled across my empty bed. I lay still, listening for Adam's keys, for Rowan's laughter from the porch, old habits clinging even when the people are gone. Paige slept late, her door closed. I let her. She'd earned her peace. I padded through the house. Every room felt larger but emptier, echoes of what used to be. A mug on the counter with Rowan's lipstick. Adam's shoes by the door. Little things, ghosts I needed to face. I made coffee, the process grounding. The kettle's whistle, the clink of the spoon. The way cream swirled in black coffee, slow and hypnotic. I sat at the kitchen table, my table, and let the quiet settle. The phone buzzed, texts and missed calls. A few friends brave enough to offer comfort, most silent. Miriam's message was first. You did the hardest thing. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed. Others were less kind. Whispers around town spread like wildfire. She should have kept it private. She must have driven him to it. Poor Paige. I turned my phone face down. I spent the next days sorting through memories, packing Adam's things into boxes, collecting Rowan's stray hair ties, erasing photos from frames. Every object was a tiny ache, but also a small victory. Each one I moved or threw away was a piece of my past I could finally put down. Adam texted, called, left long voicemails. Apologies, excuses, 1,000 ways to say sorry without saying the only thing that mattered, that he chose someone else and it was over. Rowan wrote a letter, 3 pages of regret, begging for forgiveness. I read it once, then tucked it away. Closure doesn't always need words. At work, I kept my head down. Some colleagues were supportive, others awkward. A few avoided me entirely. Paige was quiet. She hovered in the doorways, watched me cook, sometimes touching my arm as if checking I was real. We talked little, but I let her set the pace. One night, she crawled into bed beside me. Are we okay, Mom? I wrapped her in my arms. We're more than okay. We're free. But scars linger. Sleep was hard. Nights were long, filled with dreams of old laughter, of Rowan's voice calling from the kitchen, of Adam's arms around me before I knew the truth. Some days anger came hot and cleansing. Some days just sadness. But slowly, I started to feel the ache less. I let myself cry. I let myself smile. And bit by bit, I learned to breathe again. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the storm, it's learning to live in the quiet afterward with only yourself for company. Weeks blurred into months. Each morning I woke a little lighter. I started a new routine, coffee alone by the window, journaling with the sun on my face, walks down Main Street without worrying who might stare. I learned to let silence fill the house without fearing it. I cleaned out closets, donated clothes painted over the marks where Rowan had measured Paige's height, pulled Adam's favorite coffee mug from the shelf, and smashed it in the trash. It felt good, decisive, necessary. Slowly, real friends began to return. Miriam stopped by with cinnamon rolls. She didn't press me for details. She just sat, listened, laughed at old stories until my ribs ached in the best way. One neighbor, Mrs. Taylor, left a plant by my door. Wildflowers, her note read. For starting over, I set it in the window, watered it every morning, watched it lean into the light. Work changed, too. At first, every meeting felt awkward, eyes flickering, whispers in corners. But as time passed, people saw me not as the woman with the scandal, but just Hazel again. My boss offered me a promotion, a chance to manage the finances for a nonprofit helping women in crisis. I almost turned it down, afraid to start anything new. But one morning, Paige caught me staring out the window, clutching my coffee. "You should take it, Mom," she said softly. "You help everyone else. Now you get to help yourself too." I accepted the job. Paige and I started new traditions. We cooked dinner together, burned a few meals, laughed more. She took up photography again, filled the house with photos of sunlight and trees, not people. Some nights we watched movies, curled up together on the couch, no phones, no secrets. Therapy helped. Not because I was broken, because I wanted to understand, to forgive myself for not seeing sooner and for trusting too long. Some nights I still dreamt of Rowan and Adam. But most mornings I woke up, felt the scar, and realized it hurt less. In spring, I joined a support group for women who'd been betrayed. I told my story for the first time, not to shame myself, but to give someone else hope. Afterward, a stranger squeezed my hand. "You made it through," she said, eyes shining. "And you made sure the world knew it wasn't your fault." I smiled. For the first time, I believed it. As wildflowers bloomed outside my window, I realized I wasn't just surviving. I was growing roots, deeper branches, stronger, a new life taking shape from the ruins. Scars fade, but the lessons remain. And with every sunrise, I learned I was more than what I'd lost. Spring arrived early that year. Cedar Falls thawed under a wash of morning gold, the river ran free of ice, and the air hummed with the promise of second chances. For the first time in years, I let myself hope. Each morning I opened the window by my kitchen sink. A breeze danced through lace curtains, tugging the scent of wildflowers into every corner. The planter on my sill, a tangle of yellows and purples, had become my daily reminder things broken could bloom again. I filled my days with small, steady rituals. Coffee with extra cream. Sweeping the porch. Paige's laughter spilling from her room as she edited photos, her lens always finding light. I found comfort in the ordinary. The way warm bread steamed on the table. The murmur of the local radio. The slow, sweet ache in my chest that meant I was still here, still me. Neighbors started waving again. I nodded back, cautious but willing. Miriam came over every Sunday with cinnamon rolls and stories, her friendship now, an anchor, not a memory. Work was different, a good different. I settled into my new role at the nonprofit helping women steady their own lives after loss. Numbers made sense, so did compassion. Every call, every meeting was a chance to turn pain into something useful. Paige flourished too. Her photographs won a contest at school, images of wildflowers, windows, sunlight bending through glass. She let me frame one for the living room. "New beginnings," she said. I looked at her and felt a quiet pride that had nothing to do with being anyone's wife or best friend or victim. Just her mom. Just Hazel. One Saturday, I caught my reflection in the window, older, maybe a little softer at the edges, but standing tall. I reached out, traced a petal of the wildflower with my finger. I whispered, "You made it." Some seasons are for surviving. Others are for growing into the person you were always meant to be. Per Pascal RT, two small joys, quiet street length. Summer pressed in, gentle and warm. I found myself savoring slow mornings, watering wildflowers, letting sun spill across bare feet on the porch. The ache in my chest had softened into something more patient, more forgiving. Each week brought new routines. Paige and I hosted brunch for a handful of women from the support group. There was always too much coffee, mismatched mugs, and laughter that carried all the way down the block. We swapped recipes, swapped stories, swapped scars. No one pitied each other. We understood what it meant to start again. I let myself wander walks along the river trail, hands brushing the tall grass, breathing in the sharp green scent of the world returning. Sometimes I paused by the little house Rowan once rented. Someone else lived there now, their laughter echoing off the porch. It hurt, but it was also a kind of relief, proof that even the worst endings could become someone else's gentle beginning. I learned to enjoy my own company. Movies alone, a book in the bath, music turned up loud while I cooked. No one to judge my taste or my voice when I sang off-key. Miriam invited me to a pottery class. I hesitated, worried I'd be the odd one out. But I went, my hands awkward on the wheel at first, then stronger, steadier as the clay spun. By the end of the night, I'd made a crooked vase. Paige filled it with wildflowers. Some evenings Paige and I sat on the porch, feet tucked up, watching the sky fade from gold to indigo. She'd show me her newest photographs, and I'd listen, really listen. We talked about dreams, about college, about things we never used to say out loud. For the first time, my heart wasn't just surviving. It was quietly, stubbornly growing strong. Sometimes joy is small, a crooked vase, a porch full of laughter, wildflowers pushing through the cracks, but it's always enough. August brought thunder and rain, then blue skies again. On the anniversary of the reckoning, I woke with a heavy heart, not with grief, but with a restless need to lay something down for good. I stood by the window watching raindrops trace patterns over wildflower petals. The house was quiet, Paige off with friends, the whole street muffled by the weather. That afternoon, I found Rowan's letter buried under old bills and bank statements. 3 pages, her handwriting messy, desperate. I read it again, line by line. She wrote about regret, about loneliness, about wishing she could undo it all. She wrote about envy and need, about how she had mistaken my trust for something to take instead of something to honor. She wrote, I miss you every day, but I know I don't deserve to. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just the memory of a friendship that once made me feel seen, safe, cherished. I let myself remember the good. And then softly I let it go. I put the letter in an envelope, addressed it to her last known address. No note. No apology. Just the word in my own hand, asterisk, asterisk, forgiven. Asterisk, asterisk. Then I walked to the mailbox, heart light in my chest. As the door clicked shut, it felt like something in me had finally unclenched. That evening, Adam called. His voice was small, careful. He asked about Paige, about me, about work. He talked about mistakes, about therapy, about missing what we had before everything changed. I listened. I didn't promise friendship or even a future, but I wished him well for his sake and for mine. When I hung up, I realized forgiveness is not letting someone back in. It's freeing yourself from the weight of what they did. I stood at my kitchen window watching the wildflowers lean toward dusk. Some petals wilted, some standing tall. And I realized I was more than the sum of all my scars. Some wounds don't close perfectly. But you can still live, still love, still blossom in the sunlight that comes after the storm. September came with cool mornings and the promise of change. On the first day of fall, Paige and I baked cinnamon rolls, her dough sticky, my icing uneven, both of us laughing so hard we nearly cried. The house smelled like sugar and yeast, like home. Later we walked to the farmer's market, arms linked, cheeks flushed by the breeze. Paige stopped at every flower stall, comparing petals and colors, asking questions about what would grow best in our kitchen window. We brought home armfuls of wildflower seedlings, yellow coreopsis, purple coneflower, red poppy. We planted them together, hands muddy, hearts light. Neighbors passed by offering hellos and helping hands. A few old friends drifted back into our lives, no explanations needed, just fresh starts like sunlight after a long rain. Work flourished too. The nonprofit's new clients brought stories of heartbreak and hope, and every woman I helped felt like a promise kept to myself. Miriam and I started a monthly game night, our laughter spilling through open windows into the night. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees, I found Paige snapping photos of our wildflowers. She looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "We're good, right?" I nodded. "We're better than good. We're here, we're growing." I stood at the kitchen window, hands wrapped around a mug of tea, wildflowers catching the last light. I thought of everything lost and everything found. I wasn't defined by betrayal or loss or the scars that would never fully fade. I was Hazel. I was Paige's mother. I was a woman who had chosen truth, who had learned to forgive, and who had learned to love her own company. As dusk deepened, I whispered a thank you to the wildflowers and to myself. Some stories don't end with a grand reunion or a perfect peace. They end with a quiet morning sunlight on your face and a wildflower in the window. If you've ever lost everything you thought you couldn't live without, let yourself begin again. Let yourself bloom. And if you've made it this far, tell me, what would you plant in your own window to remind you that survival is just the first step? Share your story. Someone needs to hear it. This morning, as I watched the wildflowers bloom in my kitchen window, I realized I'd come through the storm steadier and more at peace with myself. What matters most isn't holding life together perfectly, but learning to listen, to forgive, and to trust that real love always finds a way back. In this life, some wounds take time to heal, but kindness and understanding are the threads that hold every family together, no matter the hardships. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to share your thoughts or a cherished memory of your own. I truly believe each of us deserves a quiet place of belonging and to be heard at any age, wherever we call home in this country.